Hello, and welcome to the Monster Sanctuary Tournament Circuit. Today we're going to be casting the quarterfinals of the third tournament of Season 1 in the United Nations format. I'm PT.
And I am Pope Pius, and if I'm in one of these tournaments, I'm otherwise known as Infamous Sniper. And this match will be between DOS, who will be on the left, and Taipachi, who will be on the right. With this being a United Nations tournament, this means every monster on a player's team must have no shared monster types with any other monsters. These would be the types such as being a dragon or a construct, spirit, or aquatic. This leads to quite the diverse team building, since typically teams can revolve around their abilities that affect monsters with shared monster types.
So
here we see an interesting team from both sides. On the left we have DOS's team, which seems to be built around lots of debuffs, having a lot of monsters that can passively apply them, with Madlord and Vasuki in the back being able to do lots of damage on monsters with lots of debuffs due to their Deathblow passives.
And Taipachi looks to be running a charged shield burst team with Polteroffen and Crystal Snail as damage dealers with the volatile shield passive, which consumes shield to do an extra hit with damage based on the shield that they had.
So the strange thing here is that DOS's team does not seem to be using any attacks, merely relying on the Hexing Rod weapon to apply 2 debuffs per turn whenever they use a buffing, healing, or shielding action, along with the other abilities of the monsters, such as Druid Oak having the Curse Chain Dark Shift passive, which makes it so that every time it applies a debuff, there's, I think, a 35% chance for it to apply that debuff to another monster.
And then the team is even more durable with Yaoi's Overheal, turning excess healing into shields. So it's definitely a team that plans for the long game, tries to stall the game out, which is going to be an interesting matchup against Shield Burst, which normally also plans for the long game, building up charge and shield before using all that on a big attack.
Both of these teams are definitely more built around trying to have inevitability in their ability to kill the opposing monsters. In the case of DOS's team, Druid Oak has the Demotivate aura, which makes it so that every weakness stack on the opposing team reduces the amount of healing and shielding that they apply, I think by 15%. So that makes it so that the debuff damage will slowly wear them down, as they are not able to fully heal or shield away the damage. Meanwhile, Taipachi's team relies upon building up charge stacks and shielding in order to keep raising the damage they can deal until they can eventually one-shot an opposing monster.
And we also see both teams stacking defensive buffs. DOS's team has 2 instances of multi-regeneration from King Blob and Druid Oak, and Taipachi's team, all 3 of their monsters have multi-barrier.
As we see here, multi-barrier isn't really doing Taipachi many favors, as DOS's team isn't attacking. And we see that Druid Oak's Demotivate is really doing a lot of work, as Taipachi's team is slowly getting whittled down, and this is causing a lot of issues both defensively and offensively, as Polteroffen cannot build up enough shields in order to land a kill with the volatile shield for Polteroffen.
And instead of attacking, goes for more shielding.
It's important that Taipachi doesn't attack and doesn't use up those charge stacks, so they can eventually build up enough in order to land a kill on one of DOS's monsters.
The debuff damage is wearing away almost all of the shields. Polteroffen had a pretty full shield bar, but now it's down to about a third. The congeal damage from Yaoi is especially doing a lot with Polteroffen's water weakness.
normally Polterhoffen can be at least mostly somewhat fine from Congeal due to having higher mana regen, but the chill stacks as they build up will reduce that mana regen, which also hurts because Polterhoffen does like to use its transfusion passive to heal based off of the mana it regenerates, which then it has healing shield in order to gain shields from that healing.
Ultrafen also has 2 instances of mana charging, if I'm not mistaken. So it's also reducing the number of charge stacks it can accumulate.
Yes, so overall it's making it a lot more difficult for Polterhoffen to build up to the point where it can get kills on the opposing team.
And Breakazul just goes down to debuff damage. Argo is also getting worn down. The interesting thing about Taipachi's team is that they only have one dedicated healer, King Blob, which is also weak to debuffs. So that might present some problems for them.
Yeah, it makes it quite difficult for Taipachi since their health just will keep going down and they don't have many means of bringing it back up. Taipachi's team would do a lot. Taipachi's team would do a lot better against a team that would be attacking more, since the barrier buffs would really prevent the opposing team from wearing through the shields, and they could just rely on shielding in order to take damage.
King Blob has been a very popular monster in this tournament, since Slime is a very easy type to fit in. And it looks like Taipachi is using a Light Shift King Blob with heal charging, and DOS is using a Dark Shift with debuff mastery. So King Blob's shift depends on which blob it is evolved from. The shifts you see most often are heal charging and mass mystify, but King Blob is extremely flexible, which makes it very good in a format with such a restrictive team building style.
Meanwhile, most of the other blobs are rather a bit more specific in what teams they'd want to be in. Lava Blob and Ice Blob have a hard time in PvP, and then regular Blob is much more specific to debuff teams, and same with Rainbow Blob. Though Rainbow Blob is a bit more generally useful as a very good debuff damage dealer.
So we just saw Polterhoffen manage to take down Yowie, was aiming for Druid Oak, but Yowie's taunt redirected the attack. And now DOS has brought in Thornish to apply Protect. And we're also already into Infinity Stacks, both of these teams aiming for the long game. Infinity Stacks will add 25% damage per turn. So eventually, one side will be able to use those to break through the other's defenses.
So we saw a worst case scenario for taunt proccing, which is the taunt monster dying, and we see in this situation that even that situation is really bad for the person whose monster got taunted, because in this case, Taipachi really needs Druid Oak dead. Druid Oak is spreading a ton of debuffs due to it having Warlock healing and Hexing support, the Hexing Rod, and Curse Chain. Additionally, Demotivate is the main reason that Taipachi's team is slowly getting whittled down. So the fact that Taipachi was not able to kill their intended target is huge. Additionally, due to being relying on Shield Burst, or in this case Volatile Shield, they need multiple turns in order to build up to enough damage to take out a target. So the fact that they spent multiple turns killing the wrong targets is a huge blow to Taipachi for this match.
Almost manages to take out Thornish, but Thornish survives, which is a problem for the same reason, and it's already back to full health.
Yeah, Taipachi is very reliant on just taking out a target in just one hit. So the fact that they did not get that kill there is really bad, because they spent that's a whole turn's worth of charge stacks that could have been saved up for a future turn's attack, which would have led to a kill. So without any shields, we see that Polteroffen isn't really able to do any significant damage just by exploiting Druidok's weakness. And Druidok is still building up age stacks, making it more and more dangerous.
So normally, shield burst teams tend to be favored in the long run because of their ability to build up charge stacks and do damage by defending. But between demotivate and all of the debuff stacks, DOS's team is actually wearing down Taipachi's team instead. Crystal Snail has a lot of debuff removal, so we'll see how that changes things. Slight Shift is Curse Breaker, and it also has Restoring Shield.
Both teams have a strategy of building up towards an inevitable kill. Taipachi through building up charge stacks and shields until they eventually can just one-shot. Meanwhile, DOS's team wearing down the opposing side with debuffs and using Demotivate to make it so that the opposing team can't just heal off the debuff damage. Although in this case, DOS is very much favored due to their ability to just while they're building up towards a kill, they're also applying lots of pressure on the opposing team and preventing them from shielding up and building up towards their kills that they want.
So eventually we might see Druidok switch to attacking with the number of Infinity and Age stacks that have built up. Breaking through Protect with the Coal Toss. They're considering the damage preview on Druidok and just missed the kill.
It's really difficult to handle these sorts of situations because Goblin Miner also wants to build up charge stacks before trying to go for a kill or before attacking, but since they have to attack first or to get through Thornish's taunt, or Protect in this case, the Taipachi has to attack with Goblin Miner, but Taipachi needs to know whether or not Polteroffen can actually kill before doing that. But they can't see the damage preview with all their combo, so they just have to waste Goblin Miner's charge stacks, not to shield with it, and hope that Polteroffen's damage preview would be good. So in this case, Polteroffen did an AoE attack to avoid Thornish taunting and gain that volatile shield proc on the Druidok, since I assume it has the highest HP stat of the monsters on DOS's team. But unfortunately, just with all the weakness stacks, with the little amount of shields that it has, it just wasn't able to do any significant damage. And at this point, things are looking pretty hopeless for Taipachi, since they've only gotten one kill. All their monsters are on the brink of death.
See, using a potion, using another potion.
At this point, now that Taipachi's turns are being spent on trying to heal off the damage being done to them, and the fact that that damage is not going to stop, they're pretty well done at this point.
So, spend their entire turn healing.
All that's going to be undone next turn.
And now we see DOS attacking with Thornish and bringing down Goblin Miner. And from here the game is pretty much over. Taipachi only has 2 monsters active, while DOS still has monsters in the back line. And when you're brought down to having only 2 monsters, unless you can do the same to your opponent immediately, it's very hard to recover with no revive. Having only 2 actions means that your attacker has much less combo built up. It means you're just doing less in general, and yeah, and that's the game. So on to game 2.
Since we're in the quarterfinals, this will be best 3 out of 5. So Taipachi still has, well, there's still quite the chance here. So each player can have a sideboard of up to 3 monsters, which also are under the same restrictions of not sharing any types of any other monsters on the team. And in this case, we see that neither DOS nor Taipachi had brought in any sideboard monsters, if they had any. Which really hurts for Taipachi. Their King Blob is weak to debuffs, and it was very obviously quite bad for it in the previous match.
So we do see Taipachi bringing in Crystal Snail in their lead to try and control the buildup of debuffs on their team. And that Spark Shower burns through Druid Oak's shield, but it doesn't do much beyond that.
So when players lose, they get to choose whether they go first or not in the next game. And we saw that Taipachi here actually chose to go second, hoping that having 3 monsters would allow him to take out an opponent. But in this case, being afflicted with so many debuffs right from the get-go just really hampered their ability to do anything significant.
So we see them.
Unfortunately for Taipachi, Dawson's team's debuff strategy both applies pressure and hinders his monsters. Meanwhile, Taipachi is merely applying pressure by trying to build up towards a kill with Shield Burst, or Volatile Shield.
The additional debuff removal seems to be helping. Polterhoffen has more shield than it tended to in the previous game, but Doss's team is still at full health and full shield. Yaoi is not a monster that sees a lot of PvP play, but it certainly seems to be doing its job here with Overheal.
Additionally, it also brings Congeal and Fatal Upkeep, so that it's boosting the damage of debuffs. And Overheal is quite nice for staying healed up. As we saw in the last match, Druid Oak actually struggled to bring himself back up to full shields after Yaoi was gone, because he no longer had Overheal. If Druid Oak had any sort of weakness in this team, it'd be the fact that it lacks any sort of shielding. In most cases, just bringing monsters back up to full health is not enough to keep them alive from... since they can pretty easily be one-shotted from full health with no shields. So here Polterhoffen does have full shields and 82 charge stacks, so it can most definitely get a kill here, though it's quite likely that Taunts can redirect its attack. But I suppose the damage preview showed otherwise. I also see the Daws's team that they're just using Life Wave level 1. They're already at full health and shields, and the best thing they can do is just keep triggering their Hexing Wands by using healing, shielding, or buffing actions. So they're just going to sit there and trigger the wands and stay at full health and shields while conserving mana.
And in addition to conserving mana, since Daws's team doesn't really attack, they don't really care about the lack of combo, because combo just increases attack damage. There's Polterhoffen's Lava Stream again, but Yaoi taunts and Druid Oak survives. And so it looks like now we're in the same situation as the last match, with Thornish defending Druid Oak now.
Snail are definitely going down. So here, down 2 monsters and not killing the monster that they wanted, Taipachi is really falling behind.
There's full potential, lots of buffs and a big shield. We'll see if Polterhoffen can do some damage with that. Probably going to need a turn or two to build up charge stacks first. Goes for an attack anyway and almost takes out Thornish.
Well, in this case, not getting a kill is a huge blow to Taipachi, since that was an ultimate spent on doing that. Additionally, both of those were single target actions on Polterhoffen that weren't, as opposed to AoE actions applying shielding to the team and buffs in order to keep them safe from the debuffs that DOS would apply.
DOS's team has so much healing and shielding that Thornish is already almost back to full health and shield.
Shieldburst teams invest a lot into getting their kills, so preventing them from getting their kills either through blind stacks making them miss or taunts redirecting their attacks can really set them back, since they'll either spend ultimates They'll spend actions not healing monsters, or they will spend multiple turns worth of charge stacks on the getting their kills.
We're into
In this case, all that
infinity
investment
again.
was wasted.
King Blob's Restore trying to control the debuffs on Polterofen.
King Blob lacks Mass Restore, so it's not. So Taipachi isn't able to keep King Blob itself healthy as they're trying to keep Polterofen healthy, which will result in it eventually getting worn down.
Taipachi broke Protect with Goblin Miner, but it looks like they're not confident they can take out Druid Oak.
In Taipachi's situation, they just need to hold out until they can have the damage preview show that they can kill both Druid Oak and Thornish.
So that they'll still make progress even if Thornish taunts. So that's more healing, more charge, more debuff removal. Looks like they're considering whether to try and break Protect again, and they do try to break Protect. And they get the kill on Druid Oak with that Lava Stream. But Madlord does a lot of damage. With Death Blow, it does more damage for each debuff on the opponent, and Taipachi's team has a lot of debuffs.
Madlord also has 2 nodes of Heroism, boosting its damage for each buff it has. And considering it just got quite a few buffs from, well, I got at least 3 buffs from King Blob, it's got a pretty good damage boost. Though in this case, it managed to not get a kill, but DOS is just so ahead of Taipachi, and Thornish can keep Madlord alive, or Thornish can at least protect and taunt for Madlord. That'll be hard for Taipachi to get a kill on it.
Madlord is extremely powerful, but it's weak to all attacks, so it's also extremely frail. The Protect going a long way towards keeping it alive, and Thornish survived the attack as well.
Despite having the highest stat total in the game, Madlord lacks any defensive abilities and is also weak to all attacks. And so it ends up being like one of the frailest monsters in the game, surprisingly.
There was the damage we were missing last turn. Polterofen goes down, and Taipachi no longer really has much in the way of damage. The Dracozul is built for support, which you can tell by the Dark Shift, and Goblin Miner usually wants to build up a lot of charge before it attacks. And so this is looking like it's close to over as well.
When it comes to the shifts of the Dracos, you have Blacksmithing, which is a 15% boost to the stats from your equipment. Meanwhile, Equipment Mastery is basically a 33% boost to their equipment slots.
And that's the game. That attack from Madlord. So we're on to game 3. Taipachi will need to win 3 in a row to come back from this now. Still no sideboarding. So we'll see how this goes.
Oh, but with what I was saying earlier, when it comes to the Dracos, typically you want to focus your stats on your last acting damage dealer, who will actually be getting you kills. So that's why you typically light shift the Dracozul or the Drakenov evolutions that you use as your damage dealer, and then dark shift the ones that'll act as supports. In this case, I imagine Taipachi wants Dracozul to act as a support, building up shields for the team while it attacks and buffs and passively shields.
Dracozul is actually very good at building combo with Sidekick support and Snowveil. Sidekick support makes Sidekick apply to not only additional attacks, but also additional support, and Snowveil is both an attack and a buff. And so Drakazul, combine that with mana shielding and copy shield, and Drakazul can buff, shield, and build combo for the team all just by attacking.
In this case, typically Drakazul's moderate damage output would be kind of helpful, but Dalsa's team is just regenerating so much HP that the pressure it applies just isn't very substantial. And it also doesn't help much to the debuffs that Dalsa's team is pressuring Taipachi's team with.
Takes a turn to use a potion to try and keep King Blob alive. But Daws's team is fully set up, and King Blob goes down to the debuff damage.
Alright, Targoat's coming in.
That'll keep the team building up charge stacks at least. Between Leadership, Meditate, and Load Up, Targoat is actually one of the best monsters at applying charge stacks in the game.
Crystal Snail isn't building up any charge stacks, though, which doesn't work well for Taipachi. Rather than having they could have 3 full monsters applying charge stacks, but instead they only have 2, which is going to lead to a much slower charge generation and make it harder to get kills.
So again, we see Daws's team using only the lowest levels of their moves now that they're at full health.
Crystal Snail's Curse Breaker and its Light Shift, removing a debuff every turn, is doing some good work. You can see that Targoat's actually able to maintain not having any debuffs on it, and the team's actually able to stay at full shields. So he should be able to see Polteroff and get a kill here. So it's looking like the damage prediction isn't that clear.
And they decide to take a turn off and use an antidote instead.
Yeah, it's really important that Taipachi save those charge stacks so they can guarantee a kill. Taipachi's actually keeping the debuffs at bay, which is very different from previous matches. Typically they'd be pressured most turns and having their HP brought down, but in this case their shields are staying up quite well.
There's another shield, lots of charge stacks. So probably see Polteroff go for an attack, if not this turn, then certainly in the next turn or two. Crystal Snail uses Restoring Shield on itself. And
Yaoi ends up taunting, which is really bad for Taipachi. But at least Taipachi is in a better situation than last time.
So now Thornish can bring multi-poison, poison nerves, and channeling balance.
Thornish isn't getting attacked, so it isn't applying as many debuffs as it could. Thornish, I think, has 2 nodes of poisoned glands, so that when it gets attacked, there's I think each poison gland gives a 50% chance or 40% chance around there to apply poison.
It also has spiky defense, and its Dark Shift, Druid Oak, is Curse Chain, so it can spread a lot of debuffs just by being attacked.
Yeah, due to having Curse Chain and most likely a Hexing Rod, it's very likely that Thornish will bring about enough extra debuff pressure to start whittling down Taipachi, who's been able to stabilize this match compared to the previous ones.
And we're now into Infinity stacks. Taipachi now in a much better position than the previous 2 matches. Might be able to convert those Infinity stacks into a couple more kills. So using an antidote to take the debuffs off of Polterofen.
Crystal Snail also has volatile shields, so that does mean that it could sneak in and kill here.
Crystal Snail isn't often seen in Shield Burst teams in Standard, but it's done well in this tournament.
Its lack of charge stack generation means that it can't build up towards an inevitable kill as reliably, though it does have H stacks to help with at least building up towards some kind of inevitability.
It also has improved barrier, which combines well with the other barrier synergy Taipachi has.
Unfortunately, that barrier strategy isn't really doing much in this case due to there being little to no attacking coming from Dawson's team. It might be possible that Taipachi here is waiting until they can get a kill on Thornish and then get a kill on Druid Oak by building up shields and charge stacks on both Crystal Snail and Polterofen. Never mind. But in this case, no taunt, so Taipachi was able to get the kill on Druid Oak. And they're still sitting fine with quite a lot of shields remaining.
Boss brings in Vasuki instead of Madlord this time. Vasuki also has Death Blow. And
Vasuki...
Crystal Snail goes down, dies to the bleed stacks from Thornish's Fish Scales passive.
Yeah, Fish Scales gave it a bleed stack based off the damage it dealt on the hits from Volatile Shield, which is a huge blow to Taipachi, as Crystal Snail's Light Shift, removing debuffs every turn, was a huge asset that they needed. Without that, they're going to have a much harder time getting back. And now that Vasuki's on the field, it can apply a lot more pressure due to its higher damage output, and it also brings severe upkeep, meaning that poison and burn damage is applying wound stacks, which reduces the healing that Taipachi's monsters are getting. Additionally, Taipachi's not getting healed at all.
Just took out Vasuki with that tackle. But now Madlord.
So for the first time, we see that Taipachi's actually ahead.
And Polterofen survives the attack from Madlord, which is not currently protected, so Taipachi has an opening to potentially take a win here.
This is really going to come down to Thornish's ability to, whether or not Thornish taunts these attacks. Though in this case, Polterofen isn't really building up as much shields. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how much Dragazul can shield it for.
Also has 4 Infinity stacks, though, which is a lot of damage. Almost takes out Madlord, and Dragazul hasn't acted yet. And Dragazul takes Madlord down.
Yeah, that was very risky, going for a single target attacks. Any taunts from Thornish there would have completely ruined that. But then again, risking keeping Madlord alive would have also been a possible way to lose.
Madlord has some of the highest damage in the game.
But also some of the worst defenses.
So from here...
Despite having...
Here I'd say Taipachi is very much favored to take this game.
Targot's even sitting there with 150 in charge stacks and might be able to get a kill itself.
Targot.
Though DOS isn't in a terrible situation because they don't care about the loss of combo. They're just hoping that the debuffs will wear away the opponent. As long as they can keep themselves healed up, then they'll be fine.
We don't see Targot attack often, but with 5 stacks of Infinity and that much charge, maybe it will this game.
Oh, yep, Targot hasn't... Oh, okay, no, Targot did act. I thought it hadn't acted yet.
So...
Well, despite all those attacks against Thornish, it managed to get back up to full health and shields.
And Targot is starting to get worn down by the debuff damage. without Crystal Snail to remove them. So this game is not decided yet.
Taipachi's only managed to have passive buff generation for the barrier buff and no other buffs. So without getting the regen buff, Taipachi's Targo just hasn't, or really just any of the monsters just haven't been getting healed at all. Drakazul actually does not have any sidekick buffs.
He uses a potion to try and keep target alive. So we see Thornish actually also building up a lot of charge through Revenge. So it might start doing damage here as well. But not yet, goes for Protect again. Target survives the debuffs for another round, but only just.
Yeah, so the fact that despite only having 2 monsters, DOS is able to keep their monsters fully healed and fully shielded is a really bad sign for Taipachi. Despite Demotivate not being on the field, Targot still isn't healing, or still isn't shielding for much. Drakazul really needs to turn off of attacking in order to apply some sidekick buffs to itself.
Thornish took some damage, but already back to full.
It won't fully shield this turn, though, which is going to be pretty huge.
But it takes out Polteroffen, and Target dies to debuff damage.
So despite wearing down Dawson down to 2 monsters, Taipachi just wasn't able to capitalize on that, and is likely going to lose from here. If Miner can survive a turn, it could possibly get a kill here, though that's quite unlikely.
And opts to use a buff with Drakazul instead of attacking to avoid those fish scales bleeds. But Drakazul almost dies as well to the combination of bleeds and debuffs.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to do much. The lack of the third monster hurts Taipachi way more than it hurts DOS due to the lack of combo.
On a team that doesn't really plan on attacking, losing out on the extra action doesn't hurt as much.
After seeing that, after this long, arduous battle, it appears that things shall be coming to an end.
Drakazul goes down, and from here, I don't see Taipachi making any sort of comeback, unfortunately.
Yeah, Goblin Miner can hardly do anything, and the DOS's team will easily heal off the damage and then return with a lot of debuff pressure. So in the end, DOS's team, DOS and Taipachi both came with teams that would inevitably bring the opposing team to an end, but while Taipachi was merely just setting up shields and charge stacks, DOS's team was constantly applying more and more debuffs, applying constant pressure, preventing Taipachi from building up towards their inevitable kills. So this is now the standings on the tournament. Hope to see you again for a later match.